don't know about you, but lately I've been feeling very, very appreciative of all those special people out there that somehow can make us laugh, can make us smile, when a lot of us just feel like crying. So fortunately for us, there is a lot of good content out there, and it's on our phones, so we're just gonna do what I do when things feel like they're getting too much. We're gonna curl up on the couch, and we're gonna start scrolling, and we're gonna start with some music. Listen to this.
As Zoom has taken over student life, we've also seen it become a place for harmonizing for the Vanderbilt Melodors.
Make a newsboy if he don't love you anymore. Walk your fine ass out the door.
Then there are the coronavirus crooners, Liz Plank on Twitter channeling her inner Taylor Swift.
It's not that hard to isolate. Just postpone that Tinder date and use that time to work on those pecs, or settle like the rest of us and text your ex. Oh,
Then over on YouTube, Chris Mann is churning out COVID-19 cover after cover.
Detox your premeditate. Don't go out there, let's sit to it. Couch potato, there's nothing to it. Stay home, 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 home. Stay home.
Then this musician named Paramind on TikTok.
I'm just a poor boy, no job security. It's easy spread, even though wash your hands, lay it low.
And speaking of TikTok, if you want to surf in isolation, try surfing your couch like Kyler and his kids.
Okay, I'm bored in the house and I'm in the house bored. Bored in the house and I'm in the house bored.
And if you're in the mood for something a little less extreme, how about some social distancing bingo?
B13. B13. Nobody? Still?
Inside apartments, city dwellers are finding comfort in old routines.
I remember when I lost my mind.
Or just happy to play tic-tac-toe with anyone they can. And even in the age of Corona, a love story as a man named Jeremy Cohen spotted a girl on a roof across the street.
I looked out my window and saw this girl dancing, perhaps to a TikTok song. I needed to say hi to her, so I waved out on the balcony. She waved back. I grabbed my tape, pen, drone, and paper. Then I wrote down my digits and sealed it on my drone. Flirting is normally daunting for me, but since I've been quarantined in my apartment for a week now, I was craving some social interaction. 2020 has been off to a terrible start, but I still needed to shoot my shot. She picked up my drone, and I guess it worked because I got a text from her an hour later.
They've now gone on 2 dates, one from afar,
You look beautiful!
one in a bubble.
And here is hoping that somehow for all of us, love will continue to find a way. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and we hope you stay safe.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.